We're back in the garden being joined by a very vocal Maggie, and the dog keeps rushing around, very distracting. I'm taking a double thread and I'm going to show you how to do a closed fly stitch on these two leaves. So I take a double fold of thread like I usually do for a double thread, and I found my scissors. It's a good day, and I'm taking the thread, folding it in half and bouncing it. I don't know if you can get that, Richard, but this little bounce there. And taking the loop, I'm going to just push that down over the end of the fold. And today we're going to do a closed fly stitch in a double thread down these two leaves. So I've deliberately chosen a very simple shape like that, a sort of teardrop shape. And if you want to practice this before you actually commit to the area you're going to work on, you could actually go to the side where you're going to cut off all this when you make it into the stocking anyway, and just draw on a similar shape to this one here. So the good thing about folding your wool with the loop at the end is that you can use this to cast on, but on this particular stitch we're going to use this as the first stitch. So I take my needle down beyond the point that I've drawn to make a really sharp pointy end, and then take it down so you leave about an inch of loop on the top. Take your needle up through the central top area of the leaf, and then pass that needle through your loop. Now pull that down towards the stem of your leaf. Now all I'm going to do now is couch that down. Don't couch it too tightly because you really want that second bit of the stitch to show. So that's the first stitch, and you only have to do that once, and that's at the top of each leaf. Now move your thread, the stitch that you've put in, and just move it slightly to one side and come up on one side. Don't go too far away, Richard. And then put your needle and just stroke your needle so that your needle's going to go slightly underneath the initial stitch. And then hold the loop down with your finger and come up at the end of that couching stitch. Do you see there? Can you see that, Richard? And then pull gently towards the stem, and you'll find that you've got two branches of a stitch, so it's like a V shape, and then you couch that down. And you're just going to continue down this shape doing the same thing. Now, these angles are rather steep. They're not really the Y shape or the V shape I want, so I'm just going to sneak in a couple of stitches on either side here, just occasionally, so you get a much more open shape. Now up at the side, down on the opposite side, hold the loop down towards the stem, come up through the end of couching stitch, slide that stitch till it's nicely formed, and pop that down. Remember to make these couching stitches, you know, big enough that you can see them. I always think this should look like little vertebra going down the middle of the stitch. And because we've just drawn on lightly in pencil, it doesn't really matter if it's not really close at the edge. But if you've drawn in a heavy pen, then you'll need to use your needle to just push the last stitch out of the way and tuck your needle underneath like that to get a very close touch. Oh, that's a neighbour's child breaking out into song. I was a very noisy child myself, so I'm very forgiving about noisy children. Right, so I put in an extra couple of stitches there, as you can see, just to keep that angle looking amazing. Right, now we've run out of thread, but we've still got an area to stitch down here. And if I just cast on in that hip shape again, cast off, sorry, and then I'm going to cast on again on the opposite side, and I'm going to show you how you finish the area. So I've threaded again with the loop at the far end of my wool, and I'm going to pop the needle down into the little area on the opposite side from where I cast off. Just come up through the loop. It's really strange doing this when somebody's watching you. It's much easier to do it when they're not. And then just pop that down, and then take the needle up on one side and down on the other. Now we've run out of space down the middle of the vein of the leaf. What I'm going to do is take the needle up, and then I'm going to go down into the same hole. So you're not actually traveling anywhere with this couching stitch. It's actually disappearing. So if you see it coming up, and then I put the needle down in the same hole that I've just come up through, it'll actually form quite a nice shape at the end. So up, I'll just make a slightly narrow one just to complete that shape. Try not to let your stitches get too small, or the other thing that people do, which is rather less easy to complete, is that they lose the lovely V-shaped angle. Try not to go straight across. Right, now so we can actually continue with stem stitch using that same thread, and instead of coming up at the end of the line, because we've just gone down on it, you'll just need to do a backwards stem stitch. So you'll just need to come backwards with a stitch, come up into the shape again, and backwards again. Hold your stem stitch, Crewel stem stitch to one side, and then just finish off your thread. And when you look at old pieces, they never really wasted these ends of threads. They just seem to stitch them in and make the thing look more luxurious. So I'm just going to join the end to this larger branch, and then I'm really running out of space and I'm running out of wool, but I'm just going to make it, and then I'm just going to finish off before that hen lays another egg. It's really, the countryside is not a quiet place, is it, Richard? It's really noisy in our little country town sometimes. And then snip that off. Now I'm going to do the larger leaf next, and I'll work it in exactly the same way. If it needs more stitches on one side than the other, I'll just add in the occasional satin stitch, like a wedge stitch. Perfectly happy to do that. And I might change the colour as I go down the shape. So the first colour will go from here to about there. Then the second colour will work another area. When I run out of that, I might change to a third colour, and then use that third colour to just come down here and join these two stems. So that is close fly stitch in a double thread, done.